And now, ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
You know, business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Gocher.
How well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at preneurmedia.tv.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of PreneurCast with me, Dom Goucher, and him, Pete Williams.
Hey buddy, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. A little bit of a special show this week.
It's a little bit different, yeah. We're actually recording this. I'm in Florida, not Australia, so obviously it's normally it's always like a by-border show generally. You're in Spain, I'm in Australia, but I'm in Florida this time.
Excellent. And we're going to get straight into this because I understand you're actually live on air right now.
I am. I'm actually doing a live stream to Rich Cheffron's client base and audience, so sort of showing how my workday works. And we've spoken about how I manage all my stuff on the PreneurCast podcast before in previous episodes, which people can get at preneurmedia.tv, and show notes and all that sort of stuff live there. But we're doing this live, so we've got an audience for the very first time, which is kind of cool, mate.
Pretty cool, but a little bit scary for me. I'm not the public figure that you are. Okay, so we'll get right into it. Now, this week I've got a big question for you. This is a big one, and this is that a lot of people are out there and they've all got a lot of things in their life that they want to get done. And we're a big fan of Robert Allen's book, Getting Things Done.
Yep.
But getting things done is about, well, getting things done. And the implication is that you do it. But one of the things that you're really good at is actually getting things done without doing them.
Yes.
And I just wondered if you could talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's a good topic for the show. So I think, kind of what we spoke about, prior to the show was making the topic how to get things done without doing anything. So I guess, as business owners, whether you've got an online business or a retail store or a telco like me or e-commerce sites, whatever it might be in your business, you as the business owner and entrepreneur should be focused on the outcome. You should be worried about actually getting the result for your business, not actually doing the things yourself. So that's sort of, I guess, the overall context. That we always talk about context at the start of the show, and I really want to delve into that element of why it's important, what the difference is from a mindset shift. Does that work?
Yeah, and it's kind of connected to what we talked about before about looking at the core tasks of your business versus the mechanics of actually doing them. But it's all well and good to talk about that, but I think there is a mindset about actually implementing it. So that's exactly where I'm hoping you're going to come in with this.
Yeah, I think people have heard like the topic before. You want to work on your business, not in your business, and I guess this is another way of talking about that same sort of philosophy because so many people when they start a business, what they're doing is they actually sort of go into something they're actually generally like a mechanic at. You go and do an apprenticeship. You're a baker. You do a car sort of automotive sort of job, whatever it might be, and you sort of get this apprenticeship done, and you know how to do the tools, you know how to do the mechanics, but you open up a door on your own business, and it's like, well, hang on, to grow a business, you don't need to actually necessarily worry about doing the core elements of getting under the hood of the car and fixing the motor, or in an online business scenario, uploading the podcast as we do. We've spoken about this on the show before that I don't upload the podcast to the website or to iTunes or anything like that because there's no real value for me doing that as a business owner or as a contributor to PreneurCast. It's better off that my time is spent adding value, doing the core element, and that is for me talking to you like this in the show and making sure that the actual podcast gets up on the site, that it is in iTunes, that there are show notes created. That's the difference. It's like making sure that stuff gets done, but not actually doing it myself.
Yeah, and it's a huge change, as you say. So many people get caught in this trap of when they start a business, they very often start it about something that they're already skilled at, and so they just carry on doing that job. And it's a natural thing to do. But if you want to grow the business, if you want to scale, you absolutely can't. And I think some people find it hard to let go. We've said this before. It's one of the, I like my little phrases. And one of them is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I guess I've been really lucky, with the telco company, as we've spoken about on previous episodes, like myself and my business partners in that company, we still have no idea how to install a phone system. So I've been, and I've tried to do that with most of my businesses. I deliberately go into places that I don't know how to do the mechanics because it forces me to just focus on the sales and marketing because that's what drives a business. It's basically sales and marketing. It's traffic and conversions, whether it's foot traffic or web traffic, and whether it's online conversions or people opening their wallet in the retail store. That is actually what drives a business. The actual delivery of the actual product itself needs to be good. You have to have a good product. That's just inevitable. But you don't have to yourself worry about that sort of stuff. You need to be worried about the core elements of sales and marketing. That's what really drives the business that we've spoken about numerous times on the show.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. There's so much. If you actually stand back and look at the business side of a business, there are so many things that you need to do just to keep the business running. You've always got to isolate yourself from product or from delivery in order to get that business part of the business done. And as you say, I mean, that's a great example you give there, is that you actually consciously now choose businesses to get into that you're not involved in the doing. You're involved in the business, the strategy, the marketing, the sales, the traffic, all of those important things, from a strategy point of view. But what would you say to somebody? Because I mean, that's a great opportunity if you can get there. But I think a lot of people are already in the mechanics trap, as it were. What would you say to somebody, or what kind of things can we help people with to first of all change the mindset and then kind of start getting out of that situation?
Yeah, well, before we go down that path, I'm going to try and answer that question a bit differently, like I often do to you on the show, dude. Look, it's really quite strange. If you look at a traditional business, like a retail store, or even a manufacturing company, or something in the real world, which I know a lot of our listeners to the podcast actually have, is that what they're doing is they know that they can't do the finance. They can't do marketing to a certain extent. So they actually outsource that sort of stuff, whether it's, not really overseas outsourcing in that context, but they'll find an accountant or a bookkeeper locally to do that sort of stuff. But one thing that continually surprises me as we sort of, grow our audience from the online world who have online businesses, for whatever reason, they seem to think that they have to do everything in their business. As online business owners, they have to worry about the marketing and the traffic and the content creation and the uploading and, you wouldn't do your own signwriting in your real world retail store. You'd find someone who's a signwriter and do that. You wouldn't go and learn how to actually paint the for sale sign or learn how to actually design your business cards and print them yourself in the real world. But for some weird reason in the online space, I seem to find that more and more people feel like they need to know how to do the YouTube uploading, how to do the submission of podcasts to iTunes. They sort of feel like they need to know all that sort of stuff. But this is something I guess we talk about quite a bit, is that to try and bridge that gap between traditional business ownership and the processes people go through compared to online business ownership and the processes people go through.
Yeah, and I think really you've kind of come right the way back to my little phrase, because just because you can doesn't mean you should really does apply in this online world, because it's becoming so accessible. Creating a website is relatively easy these days. It can be done literally at the press of a button. Uploading to YouTube gets easier every day for you to do it. So the temptation is actually growing. Whereas what people might see as a skilled job, like sign writing or bookkeeping, the financial side of things, people are happy to kind of let go of that and leave that to the experts. But they're getting sucked into these jobs, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's, the mindset shift that you talked about earlier, is that, what people have to do is sort of start realising that, all the successful businesses, whether they're online or offline, are fundamentally grown by people working on their business, not in there, and letting go of some things and not having to know how to actually do the YouTube upload, knowing that what the outcome looks like. I know if the video has been successfully uploaded to YouTube because I can go to YouTube and see it there live. I know when the podcast has been edited and loaded to iTunes. I know when a blog post has technically been posted to the blog, because I can go and see it. I don't necessarily need to even know, care, or want to know how to actually log in and post a blog post, because I focus on writing the blog post or producing the core element of the blog post and then having my team actually upload it. Again, with accounting, I don't know how to do debits and credits necessarily. I know what a balance sheet and a profit loss statement looks like. So in the telco or the e-com sites or the outdoor store that that I've got, I can just look at the financial statement and know that it's been there, and that's the results, and I can make analysis on that. I don't sit there and actually plug all those details in, because there's no value that I'm adding to that process. The value I add is by looking at the outcome and assessing that and deciding what to do with that.
Absolutely. So really the first thing, I guess, to lock that mindset in is that observation. It's where is the value? Yeah, where do you bring the value, and where does you being involved not add any value? Is that right? Is that what you're kind of saying? That's
exactly right. I guess we had this episode a few weeks back about core versus mechanics, and this is sort of I guess an extension of that is that, any sort of element of a business, whether it's a high-level process or a particular small tactic, as the business owner and entrepreneur, you should work out what is the core stuff that you deliver or bring to the table for that. And then what is the mechanical elements that you personally add no value to? And that's where you start leveraging your time and leveraging your team and leveraging tools and systems to do that stuff for you. So, I guess if we go back to an online example, things like, the podcast or, even let's writing a blog post. One thing that you want to worry about is that, what you add to that is actually the theory, the arguments, the examples, your experience, your history into the core element of the actual article. The physical, cutting out the ums and the ahs and making the paragraphs actually be articulate and using the right type of English, UK versus American, all that sort of stuff is just the mechanical elements of writing an article. I don't personally add any value to that because I'm not great at, I'm a Bill Gates student in that I love, spell check. I can't type. I can't spell correctly because I've been brought up with Microsoft. For the Apple listeners out there, you probably love that dig. But, that's what I focus on is that, my experience and my expertise, not the actual formatting of the actual article itself. So that's the core element there. In business, that's sort of the other side of things that we're doing as well, is that, worrying about stuff where I can actually add value and not the mechanical side of things too. So,
and I think you really do. People might say, "Oh, well, it's all well and good for you to say that, Pete," but you stand outside and you look at a new business. But I know something about you, and we talked about this a little bit in Core versus Mechanics. I know you're actually capable of doing some of these online tasks yourself. I know you know a lot. People may not know this about you, but you know a lot about, for example, AdWords. You can produce your own videos if you really want to, and sometimes you do, and you do that for a particular reason. But it's a conscious decision. But you really have got yourself out of that, and by hiring people or finding people that can perform those point tasks when they need doing. So we've talked a lot about why. We've told people why it's not a good idea to be involved in these mechanical tasks. First of all, in the Core versus Mechanics show, but again now from a bigger business standpoint. Mm-hmm. But really, I'm really interested in the what. What can people do? First of all, to shift a mindset, and then to just take a step. Because this is the thing. People look at what we're saying, and I know there's probably people listening to this show now, wherever they are, because people listen, walking the dog, washing the dishes, whatever. And they're going, hey, it's all right, you're Pete Williams. You can hire anybody you want, anytime you want. Just go hire somebody. Hey, wow, And I think a lot of people are afraid of this idea of, first of all, letting go control. But second of all, the difficulty that they perceive in hiring, because I guess if you've never done this, the idea of hiring somebody, if anybody's ever gone for a job interview, then they may be equating that job interview experience that they had with trying to get somebody to do a job for them. Yeah?
Yep.
So is there something we can talk about around that? Because I think that's a big fear for people.
Well, I think, what you just start out with is just hiring expert people for the actual task you need. Like using the signwriter example that we spoke about earlier, what you're wanting to do is find a signwriter who's had experience in signwriting and hire them. You're not going to go and buy the paint and speak to the guy at the local hardware store and work out what you need to do yourself. So, if we take this on an online perspective, which I think is where you're heading with that question, is that, you go to places that have a plethora of people wanting to do jobs they're experienced in. So, creating an AdWords account. I used to do AdWords for some of our businesses initially just because of a resource restriction, but now it's like I'll find someone who, can do AdWords and go and do that. It's about knowing, why something needs to be done, what needs to be done, and then just finding someone who can do the how-to. There's no value you need to add. So it's going to places like Elance, Odesk, asking people in your network, talking in forums. This is why mastermind groups, and we had that episode a while ago about the importance of mastermind groups. That's why that sort of stuff is really important to do as a business owner, whether it's a mastermind group from people around the world that jump on Skype on a weekly basis, or you get together in a weekly sort of scenario, and we've spoken about this on the show before, that what you want to be doing is just leveraging off your friends and your relationships and seeing who they know they can recommend to do an AdWords account or do an uploading of YouTube video or something like that.
Actually,
is that sort of the thing
before
you're thinking
you carry on, I just really want to highlight that point, because it's one of the things is whenever you hire anybody to do anything, the ideal is to get a referral, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And so that idea of mastermind groups is just it's great because it's a great way of building up a group of people who may have already experienced the good and the bad of any particular group of trades. It's not just about online. I mean, it works really well online because we can mastermind with anybody around the world using all these new online tools that we've got available to us. But you can just, as a regular high street business, join a business networking group, for example. And rather than just do it for the business networking opportunities where, I mean, these things are set up so that people exchange leads and give people leads for their business. But the other opportunity that's there, which I think a lot of people overlook, is exactly that idea of being able to get a referral for a tradesman or some service provider to get a job done and get it done well without having to go through some lengthy interview or investigative process to find that person.
Yep. Send out an email to your group of friends and go, hey guys, I need a referral for this particular task. Who do you know that can sort of fast track that for me and get them to give you that? That's a great way of getting the how-to done without knowing how to do it yourself. And this is sort of to come back, sort of, I guess, what we spoke about at the top of the show, is that the whole idea is that as business owners, you should be focusing on getting outcomes, being very, very clear on your outcomes. And I think we should talk about that a little bit, about being clear about outcomes, because once you are clear about your outcome, you know what the results you need are to get to where you want to go. You don't get distracted at that point by all this how-to. I think people that I speak to and consulting clients and things like that is that a lot of the reason I think people sort of get distracted by the real granular how-to stuff is they don't have a very clear outcome and don't have a very clear sort of path of what the actual steps are or the roadmap is to actually get there. And I think that is sort of what the focus should be as entrepreneurs and as business owners, is focusing on getting clear clarity on your outcome, then sort of working backwards of what are the actual steps that make that outcome achievable. And then you just worry about hitting those roadmark, pit stops or bench stops, and actually then, using leverage and an outsourced team or in-source team or getting random people to do individual jobs to actually do the things that need to get you to the next actual pit stop. It's not about doing the stuff yourself, because, you can get really bogged down with learning how to do video creation and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, all you need is a video on YouTube. Just do the core element and then get someone else to actually give you the outcome, or the actual intermediate stuff that gives you the outcome you're after.
I actually think that's another great kind of tip to highlight there is we talked right at the beginning about David Allen's book, Getting Things Done. And one of the things that he says in there about defining a project is to look for what done looks like. Yep. And I think both from the point of view of not getting bogged down in the mechanics, but also in a great way to start practicing specifying the job to someone else to get it done. If you start your project definition with what does done look like, then you've got yourself a very, very clear goal if you're going to give that to somebody else. If you're absolutely 100% clear on what does it look like when it's done, you're already most of the way there to giving that job to somebody else and validating that they've done the job correctly. And to make sure also, and we've talked about this before, make sure that when you give them the job, you're giving them all the information they need.
I think that's important, is getting that clarity of what the outcome actually is. Because I think, if you do get bogged down with, okay, hypothetically, if we use the online example again, is I need to do a video to promote something for like a product or a web page or whatever it might be. That's the outcome you're after. And then when people start learning about video, they start getting distracted by all these shiny objects of the different types of videos they can do, and then they just get confused. Yeah. They just get confused about, okay, well, hang on, you get distracted by the outcome because you get, you can't see the forest from the trees. Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is exactly, you literally picked up the exact example I was going to go with. And it's video, because video is my thing. And that's how we got together in the first place, through all the media production that I do for you. But to me, that's exactly what happens. The thought process that most people go through, and you can map this to anything, but video is a really good example. When somebody says, I need a video for something, the first thing they do is they start looking up video. And if you just randomly look up video production, oh wow, you'll just get so much information. One of the big things that you'll see, but for example, is you can do green screen. Yeah? Well, that's great. And green screen is a great piece of technology to put in a fake background behind you, which is why you use this technique, but let's not get bogged down in that. But that's actually
if you start looking at the green screen, then you're actually directing your mind towards an alternate outcome without having defined the outcome in the first place. You know, if the irony would be, like, for example, let's define the outcome of today's show, right, on the live stream, or a video produced in the live stream studio, and let's just forget that it's live stream for a second. Let's just say, hey, right, so you rang me and you said, Dom, I want to produce a video, and I need like some like what look like blinds behind me, what looks like a window behind me. Yep. Yeah, because I just think it'll make a really good scene for an office, you know, and I want to look like I'm in an office. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now I'm clear on that as a goal. You've got the clear. That's the kind of setting you want. Yep. And well, honestly, the easy solution to that is, well, stand you in front of a window with the blinds shut.
Well, yeah, exactly right. But I think it's more than just sort of that. I would take it at a higher level and sort of say that, you know, what's the purpose of the video? Yeah. Because that way, if you're very clear about the purpose of the video, it's a training piece. You need to train somebody. Yep. Then obviously, you know, being face to camera for, you know, the whole, you know, hour of that presentation, of that piece of content, doesn't really add value to the person who's actually watching or and taking on and devouring this content. You know, for example, like a lot of the training programs and stuff that we produce together, it's very much keynote-based slides because it makes it easier for me to produce it because I'm worried about the core element, which is my voice and the message. But, you know, if I have to do it in front of a camera, I have to worry about looking right, having my hair done and, you know, being articulate and all that sort of stuff beyond just worrying about the core piece of content because, you know, there's no real added value from me being face to camera the whole time on a particular sort of, you know, piece of content. So knowing I want to do a video, but then what's the reason for the video? Who's going to absorb it and why is it going to be done? Like, if you're doing, you know, video just for backlinking hypothetically, well, does it need to even be, you know, you? Does it need to actually be you doing that? Can you just have a musical track with text flying across the screen? There's heaps of TV commercials that have that without even a voiceover artist. So, you know, think about, you know, my book, How to Turn Your $1 Million Idea into a Reality. That audio book wasn't even voiced by me. There's no, you know, really, you can argue it, but in my opinion, there's no real value that I actually add by voicing the audio book. We've got a new one coming out soon, and like the value for the audience is the content. And, you know, you could argue that it's probably better off that someone who's a professional voiceover artist actually, you know, narrates the book, not me. So, you know, because the outcome is an audio book. And then the goal of that audio book is to teach people and get them actually educated about a particular topic. Well, by me doing the voiceover, that's sort of, you know, there's no value for me. If I have to do the voiceover, I've got to learn how to do a voiceover. I've got to find software that allows me to do a voiceover. Do I use a teleprompter to make sure I pace it right? You know, there's a lot of how-to stuff that I need to learn to voice that audio book. But it's not really going to enhance the outcome for the actual buyer of that book. So for me, it's about worrying about focusing on how to get an audio book created, and what that looks like is an audio book that I can listen to that matches the words that I wrote for the book. Well, that actual, the audio, the technical editing of the audio file, the reading, all that stuff can be done by somebody else. That's the how-to that I don't need to worry about. I need to worry about getting the audiobook completed, and that's managing a team and putting down a high level what needs to be done. Well, we need to actually firstly find a narrator. Then we need to make sure he narrates the book. Then we have to submit it to Audible. Like, they're the three sort of high-level steps that I need to worry about to get the outcome, to get the thing done. How to actually submit it to Audible? There's no value that I add to that. Let's find someone, whether it's a team member that they can spend their time learning how to do it, or we go to Elance or Odesk and get them to actually do it for us. There's no value. Like, I can't submit a form any better than someone else can submit a form. You know, I can't sort of type my name any more eloquently than someone else can when they're filling out, you know, the form. I can't hit submit button better than someone else can. There's no value I add to that. So that's the how-to stuff that I don't really care about. As long as the book's live and selling and, you know, the bank account details are correct on the royalties, that's all I need to worry about.
A perfect example, mate. It's exactly. I mean, two really good examples, and you finished off my video example for me again, very well. It's exactly it. You start with the actual final goal, and it's not even the final object, is it? It's the final goal. You know, because if you said that for example, you wanted to produce a piece for market leadership, then it's more important for you to be in it. And your voice to be heard or you to be seen on screen. But you're absolutely right. With a video, for example, if the purpose of that, your goal for that is to train, to convey knowledge, to train, to give somebody something for reference. In fact, if you stand on screen for an hour, waving your hands around, you're doing a disservice to the audience because they're going to have to furtively be scribbling notes about what you say. If we produce slide-based kind of presentation-based things with bullet points showing the key points as it goes along. There's engagement and everything that you normally need in a video, but there's something on the screen for them to reference. So it's absolutely beyond even what is the end product, but what is the goal of that product. It's absolutely, and then working back. So you're again, the audiobook example was great because it showed how you can, you set your goal, which is, hey, I just need an audio version of this book. I've got the book, I just need it, I just need an audio version. Is there anything else I need? No. Okay, well, in that case, the list of things that I need to get done is very simple. Find a narrator.
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly.
And so it's not even just about saving time, because a lot of times people just think this is about saving time, but it's about saving headspace, about saving the amount of thinking, the learning you've got to do. There's all these extra things that people don't account for when they take on all these other tasks, especially when they start at the bottom of the task instead of the top. And I think from a mindset point of view, if I was going to take something away from this and put it as a little summary, would be is start with the real goal in mind. Yeah?
I think that's the key. We talk about this so often on the show here, is just getting clarity and context. Being very, very clear about your outcomes and then knowing what the context is all about. So it's not about, worrying about the how-to stuff. It's like, okay, as a business owner or a marketer, this is what I need to be focusing on. This is what's going to grow my business, and go from that. So... Yeah,
but we're into context and again, which is really important, because without that context, I think nothing's going to happen properly. Somewhere down the line, something's going to go wrong. Either you're going to be wasting your time, you may be wasting the time of the person you asked to do the job. You may not even be able to evaluate the job properly, because if you went from front to back or bottom to top, if you work bottom up with one of these projects, then it's inefficient. It seems efficient because you start where you think you can start. Most people do that, don't they? Most people start where they think they can start. They start with a bit of internet research, and they go, hey, or recording audio for a book, because they've got this in their head. They didn't think it through. So, let's just talk it out. Let's compare your example, which was, I need an audio book. Do I need to be in it? No. Yeah, great. Okay, get a narrator. Done. To a normal example, which would be, okay, I need an audio version of this book. Right. Okay, so first of all, I need to research recording audio. Okay. Well, I'm going to need some equipment. What about microphones? Should I get a USB microphone? Should I get one that plugs in? Should I use the one on my computer? I haven't even started. I haven't got anything done yet.
It's too much headspace. It's just too much headspace to take up to be productive for your business, because it's not going to help the outcome, knowing which microphone to use. There's no value for that.
Absolutely. But so many people get caught in this trap. Yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, look, I think that's a good place to leave today's show, because obviously, as we said at the start of the show, I'm on a live stream right now. So, normally our episodes go for 40, 45 minutes, and we're getting close to 30 minutes. So let's actually sort of just wrap it up right now. It's still a good value show for everyone who's listening. The action point, we always have an action point at the end of every PreneurCast episode. So I think today's action point is to really start looking at the stuff you're doing in your business. It's almost the same action point that we spoke about in the core versus mechanics show a few weeks ago, is that really look at all the stuff you're doing on a daily basis to grow your business, and what are the things that actually help grow profits and grow your business compared to stuff that you're just doing for the sake of doing it. It's not actually adding any real value. So I think that's the action point for today's show.
Excellent, mate. I think we've really hit some very, very good points with that show. Yes, we need to wrap it up because I know you're live. But just to recap for people very quickly, that mindset thing is just go for the goal first. Don't go for the mechanics. Don't go for the how. Go for the why. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's the best place to start. Okay, great show as always. Let's wrap it up, and everyone, we will see you next week.
See you next week, guys.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gocher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at PreneurMedia.tv or drop them a line via PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com.